Thumbs up though to Montreal. That's quite a hockey reporter's experience you had there, Mr. Yaremchuk.
Yeah, it actually ended up being like pretty wild. Like I wouldn't say I was pessimistic going into the tournament, but I wasn't like over the moon jazzed for it, right? Like I wasn't totally all in. And as it got closer, I started to get excited. And then, I mean, I've talked about this a bunch of times on a bunch of different shows.
But not this one.
Not this one. Getting there and like being in the Sidney Crosby media scrum, when you like get to look at Sidney Crosby and he's like, all I want to do is win. He's like, all I want to do is be here and play for Team Canada, and talks about talking to doctors and getting everything sorted out with his wrist. And it's just like, oh shit, this might be really good. And then that first game hit, Sweden, Canada, and it was just like, holy shit, this is on. I mean, you guys were in the building. We talked about it on Thursday, but it was like, this is unbelievable. And then everything that went on after that. And then even in Boston, like the crowds weren't as good in Boston, but it was still sweet. I'd never been to Boston before. Great town.
Cool, hey?
Very, very cool. Like I actually would really like to go back there.
Yeah.
If there was
like,
one town to set up shop in for sports, probably other than New York or LA.
Boston.
Yeah.
Such a good sports town.
I actually think it's almost in a weird way better than like a New York. I know MSG's like right downtown, but like, I don't know. I feel like Boston, if it still has like a little bit of like a small towny kind of feel to it, which I really liked.
And every team in every sports league is like pretty storied.
Yeah.
You gotta go to Fenway.
I know.
Fenway is one of the coolest places on earth.
You been?
Yeah.
Damn. I'd love to go back in the summer
Yeah.
when it's like warm and not 75-kilometer-an-hour winds.
Yeah. Even if it's
Northeast
hot out, you don't want
sucks
that.
too, man. You walk out of your hotel and you're like swassy as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Saw the grave where Sam Adams was buried.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Drank a Sam Adams like 20 feet away from his grave. I was like, you know,
Did you
this feels
really?
right. Well, because where he's buried, then like right across the street, there's this pub called the Beantown Pub.
That's when you've made it.
And I was doing like some reading on it. And like X amount of like presidents have drank there before. That's like their selling point is like it's this super old pub right by the State House. So like yeah, Sam Adams is buried like right across the street from it. It's cool. A lot of cool stuff about Boston.
Yeah, it's a great town.
Yeah.
How was the game?
The gold medal game or the final,
Yeah.
whatever they called it.
Yeah.
It was good. Again, like the style, I'm trying to like think of how I want to go about this in the order of operations. Very heavy anti-Canadian, like just being out on the concourse in TD earlier in the day, like every 2 minutes it felt like someone was like 51st state, like yelling at someone.
Really?
It's like, yeah, it was pretty hostile, I think, between the two like fan bases. Some of it you could tell was like good natured, but some of it you're like, ooh. And then the building again, like it was in a little bit like a letdown because the Bell Center on the Saturday night for Canada USA was the most insane building I've ever been in. Like it tops Game 6 Western Conference Finals this year. It tops Game 7 Stanley Cup Final this year. Like the Bell Center.
Bell Center is amazing.
I will take it the rest of my hockey media career, how I felt when they were doing their Ole chant and the camera was just panning to different players on the Canadian team while they did that Ole. It was like, holy shit, this is unbelievable. So good. So it was a bit of a letdown getting to Boston because the crowd just wasn't quite there. Like there were points in that game where when the crowd was in a lull, in Montreal, they're never in a lull. They're always 100% dialed in. They know exactly what's happening. They're so smart. Boston just didn't quite have that. I also think part of it was like Canada USA was maybe like 5% American fans on Saturday at the Bell Center. More of a split crowd at TD Garden. I'd say it was like a 70-30 kind of crowd, right? The game was played flawlessly. Like neither team was making mistakes. That was really, really cool. And then the way our post-game show works is you can't broadcast from inside a press box. So you need to like have your base set up somewhere. And then Frank could patch in, but like Pat and me who are like running the stream, we can't be in the press box. So our Airbnb was about 2 kilometers away. We knew we couldn't get a cab because it would be after the game. But
you get scammed. Hey, recently you were scammed. There's probably trauma there.
Yeah, and I was out on cabs, trauma out on cabs and Ubers in general.
Trauma is out on this podcast.
Yeah,
Chalmers is trauma out on this podcast. Sorry,
but we didn't want to leave early because we were leaving early in Montreal. So we were like, hey, we gotta stay till the end of this game, especially because it was close in overtime. So Pat and I had our bags packed for overtime, ready to go. And I'm like wearing my dress shoes and I got my suit on and all that. And McDavid scores and you can't really cheer in the press box, but you're kind of like, yes. Then I kind of turned to Pat and gave him a fist bump and was like, fuck yeah. And then he stood up, watched them celebrate for like 5 seconds. And then it was like, okay, we got to be live in like 15, 20 minutes here. So we get to the media elevator. There's one elevator in TD Garden for media.
That's all you need.
So the line's like 30 media members long because everyone wants to get down to the room, right? So Pat and I are like, fuck it, stairs. 9 flights of stairs down at TD Garden. We end up getting shot out on the wrong side of it. So we run, probably check my Apple Maps. It was like 2.1 kilometers of us with our backpacks and our dress shoes on, just sprinting to get back to
75
Airbnb.
mile an hour winds.
Yeah, winds are howling. When you're in front of the arena, you just basically heard like a constant fuck Canada. Like it was, you couldn't tell who we cheered for. I was wearing a blue suit. I may as well have been an American member of the American media. But like to be a Canada fan, you would have almost had to camp out in the arena, I think, for like a solid hour just to let everything else die down outside. And then Pat and I sprinted back to our Airbnb and did our post-game show. But it was, again, everything that went wrong in the travel. To see Connor score that goal in person is just like unbelievable.
I think a lot of times the rivalries of the NHL are largely marketing. Like I can't think of how many times they're like Battle of Alberta, hey, and like none of the players on either team care. I wasn't that convinced on Four Nations Cup because I thought it meant nothing. The context of that game, I don't think there's ever been a more hostile.
This
hockey
is Summit
game
Series
ever,
level, man.
Yeah, but not Russia.
No,
the States. Like I never saw that coming.
Yeah.
Think about like when we go to watch games in Anaheim and shit, and we wear Oilers jerseys. There's no one gives a shit. And you were saying you had to wait. You would have had to wait it inside the arena to come out as a Canadian.
Like again, and who knows how much of it is just like jeering and whatever. But like there was a lot of like people yelling very anti-Canadian things. And I was like, damn.
I didn't even think they had it in them. The jerks. I wouldn't fuck with people from Boston. I feel like they'll chuck them.
Oh yeah, they punch first.
Yeah,
ask questions later.
It's like Anaheim crowd's a little bit more laid back.
Yeah.
When Pat and I were driving in, Pat was like, oh man, like the Boston accent. I wonder what it's going to be like to hear it. And like we joked about it a little bit. And then when we got to the arena, we were walking on the concourse a little bit just to go check out the barn. And we just hear some guy in like the thickest Boston accent standing in line for the bathroom. And he goes, hey, motherfucker. Like in that thick, like basically like Mark Wahlberg himself said it. And I just turned it back and we laughed so hard because it was just like the most. He was like, I'm in line at the fucking urinal. I was like, oh, that's great.
The first time I went to New York, I was like, I was so excited to hear a New York accent. A guy inside the airport was like, hey, forget about it type shit. And I was looking at him like this. And he goes, what are you looking at? And I go, well, I've just never heard a New York accent before. He's like, oh, okay then. And like kept walking. I was like, I'm so excited. I also wanted to see a cockroach really bad when I was in New York. And I didn't see one the entire time. When I was leaving, I asked one of the airport attendants if I could see a cockroach. And she was like, what? I'm like, well, I'm from Canada. We don't really have them because back in the day we didn't have them. She like took me in the bowels of the airport until I found a cockroach so I could see it.
I can't believe she obliged.
You should just get out of here. You.
Yeah. That's when they used to like Canadians.
The other thing that's kind of startling, this was my trip to New York, not Boston last year, but seeing a rat in person is very unsettling.
Yeah,
they're big.
I don't like that.
Where'd you see one at the subway?
Yeah, just like, or like on the street in New York, you'd be like, oh my God, that's a rat. And they're like the size of a cat.
Don't they say there's like 5 rats for every person in New York?
Something like that. Yeah.
Very, very gross.
They're gnarly.
I saw one in the subway tunnel when I was there, and I was like, I swear to God, if the subway hit this thing, it would derail. It was so big.
Yeah,
and New Yorkers are just like, yep, that's a rat. Like they're pretty.
Yeah, I guess
that's like us when we see a deer.
I guess.
Like, yeah, it's a deer.
Yeah,
but someone else is they're like, they're more happy to see the deer. They think it's crazy.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just like a newcomers. Mm-hmm. Like taking Johnny Lazarus to Jasper, and he made me stop the car so we could stare at the mountain goats.
Got to hang out with him. That was fun.
Yeah. Was he trolling again?
He was trolling a little bit, and then the next morning after Canada had won, so like he was going to the game just to sit in the stands with some of his buddies.
Yeah,
and his buddies showed up at our Airbnb to like have some beers before they left, and they came and knocked on the door playing Freebird in their USA jerseys. So then the next morning I woke up and Johnny was doing morning cup of hockey and was getting ready, and I just kind of walked out and I was a little hungover and I just looked at him and I was like, Canada, and that's all I said, and I just stumbled back into my bed. It's all that needed to be said.
That's yeah.
I can't believe the good people of Massachusetts have that much hate in their heart for Canadians. I thought we're all bros here, bros.
I was at Greta in Toronto.
Oh yeah,
for the game, and it was. I feel like initially I'm like, I'm in hostile territory, but like, no, we're all friends here, and the fact that like Marner and McDavid connected to score that goal. it's like we became all best friends by the end of the night, which was hilarious. So it was good to kind of see the Toronto energy in perspective.
Greta was rocking.
Oh, Greta was rocking is an understatement.
You know where I got a whisper of respect for our enemy was seeing Brad Marchand singing "O Canada" on Boston ice, full heart. It's cool to see international play, how the captain of the Bruins is something he believes in more. That was a cool moment.
It's so if from a player's I'm going to say from a player's perspective, they want to win for their country more than they want to win a Stanley Cup. That one's maybe debatable. Maybe.
Yeah.
I know as a fan, I want my team over. If it was my choice of a Canadian gold medal or the Oilers Stanley Cup, I will take the Oilers Stanley Cup 100 times out of 100.
I think that's a product too of like we've seen Canada win a lot in our lives, right?
But
things a bit.
Well, I really wanted Canada to win, not this past tournament, and not because it's been a while since I've seen them. Like it meant something.
Okay. I did think.
I wonder how players think.
So you could tell when the guys were doing the trophy thing. The guys who've won the Stanley Cup before weren't afraid to give that trophy like a nice big over their head.
Yeah.
Connor wanted nothing to do with that.
I was amazed though how happy he was. Like that's a huge goal. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, right? And you could argue, is that his most clutch goal of his career?
Yeah, that or Game 5 against Calgary.
Right. I mean, the fact it's a one and done tournament, his level of happiness and celebration, man, I was actually kind of shocked.
I think he was almost in shock too, though, because like he scored, and you could tell it took him like half a second to be like, "Oh my god, yes!"
Yeah.
Also, that clip of John Cooper on the bench, being like, "Someone be selfish and shoot the puck," and then McDavid, Marner, and then Connor shot right off the face off and gets one.
And then Cooper's like, "I did that."
Yeah.
Like you did not, you liar. They did that.
Yeah, that was
Chris Knobloch's in there like, "Oh, you just have to tell him to shoot." God damn it!
I did that.
That was good.
All told, it whets your appetite for the Olympics.
Oh yeah.
How did they go 10 years without internet?
It is so dumb.
What are
It
you
is
fucking-
so dumb. The Olympics are probably mad at themselves. The NHL is definitely mad at itself.
And they say it's mostly because of the PA guy.
It's the insurance on the players. Like it was the league. It was all the stakeholders outside of the players themselves, because the liability of them and playing in a non-NHL event. And they didn't want to pay for the insurance. They wanted the IOC to pay for the insurance for those players that go and play.
You can think about how to grow the NHL all you want. And you can name Green Day the official band of the All-Star Game skills competition or whatever bullshit you want. The best marketing for hockey is best on best.
Yeah,
Totally.
like it was amazing to see how much. And granted, I follow people that live in this space more than not. But just the amount of people, like especially in the States that we're talking about, like celebrities that were talking about it, it shows kind of the power of that, and just the fact that this event really was something bigger than we thought it was going to be. And ultimately, this is going to help. Like it's these things that help grow the game, and this particular event definitely helped grow the attention.
We
of the
also
game.
just need to fan international hatred for one another because it makes the hockey even better.
Yep.
If they hadn't been saying boo Canada, would it have been as intense? Nope.
Not at all. No, you're right. That definitely did add a layer to it. That like
For sure.
whatever.
We don't need free trade.
We needed it, and we needed it because it's fucking weird times right now, and we needed that victory. We needed it. Yeah, we got it. Thank you.
I was so happy to be an Oilers fan with Connor McDavid when he scores his version of the golden goal in 2010. Like, that's as good as it gets, man. I honestly think.
It's kind of funny how that works too. Hey, like those big international goals, like never a scrub, always a star.
Snipe.
It was always going to be McDavid.
Yep.
Just like in 2010, it was like it had to be Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, it just has to be.
Yeah. For him to have that moment.
A lot of Americans just got a really good core hockey memory that I think will lead them to watching non-international.
And I do think as well, as much as maybe this is a pro-Canadian slant, the general sports population in America getting as invested in that tournament as they did, and then having their hearts ripped out is in a way, I always think heartbreak breeds diehards, right? Like if you watch your team get their teeth kicked in, you're going to love them more.
That's
and
why
you're
there's so many Oilers fans.
Exactly. What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.